That's probably one of the things I have.
First one, I believe.
What's that?
The first one, I believe.
So did the whole motion?
Yes.
Did you, Leslie, did you keep that one that I signed? So I haven't signed it yet.
There's a pile of them in there.
That's all right. Morning, everyone. Call this meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Zender.
Here.
Commissioner Henning.
Here.
Commissioner Jarvis. Here. Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Schneider. Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Chairman Roy.
Here. We always start our meetings with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Dial, you want to lead us in prayer this morning?
Yes, sir. Father, we come together to represent the people of the county today and to consider the business that we have before us. As always, we ask your guidance and direction so we make the best decisions that we can for the people. We ask your blessings upon the people of the county, our staff and their families, and the work that they do. We ask for your special blessing upon all of the people in the county as they face their myriad challenges in their lives, some through COVID, others through any other things that challenge them to live day by day. We ask your help and support as they face those challenges. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the board, you'll see today's agenda. There's some additions, I believe, to this agenda.
Chairman, we need to do a discussion on a motion for TA for POAM unit B, deputy unit, and also a presentation and discussion on senior services.
Okay. Second. With those additions, right? With those. We have a motion and support for the agenda with additions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us down to May 20th, 2021, regular board meeting minutes. Motion to move. Support. Motion and support. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none. All in favor of that motion, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us down to, well, going around the dais this morning, you see the commissioner mileage expense sheets, grant applications and stuff for department heads and whatever. Take a look at it, see anything that you find objection on, please bring it before the board this morning. Elected official, department head updates. Would any elected officials or department heads like to give us an update this morning?
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
We had 20 arrests last week, one in Elma, 3 in Lapeer City, 12 in the
Sheriff's Office, 2 from MSD, 1 in Dryden, 1 in Methuen. Of the 2018 were male, 2 were female. Charges, we had 10 felony, 11 misdemeanor, and 1 civil. 179 traffic stops, 35 crashes, 5 with injury. Of the 20, 1 needed medical treatment, 3 were detoxing, and 1 needed mental health intervention. The numbers are questions? No? It was a busy weekend. Obviously, we had some pretty big events going on over the weekend. A couple days ago, we had a missing child, 2-year-old, that was located. It was great by everybody. I mean, we had MSP there with the helicopter, which a lot of people are seeing now. Deerfield Fire, we had every resource we had available to us. And truly, if it wasn't for MSP's helicopter, I don't know if we would have had the same flow. So, fantastic job by everybody. Yeah. Anything else?
That's a great thing with that heat sensor.
Yeah, I mean, the technology they have is
Unbelievable.
I mean, they can just put you right. And literally, Sergeant Blair was actually the question. He was the one that, for that reason, you can see his reaction. He was like, "How? I mean, even with his flashlight 5 feet away, he had a hard time." So, it's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible stuff.
That was just a great job and a good article in the paper. Thank heavens.
Yeah. We had, there's the worst things go through your mind, especially when there's water. Yeah. We have the diving out there right away, and search and rescue out there right away. So, everybody's
Especially after the dog was well wet.
right. And, Central Dispatch, fantastic. I mean, coordinating all those people. I mean, there were probably 8 people there that were on foot, boots to the ground, walking around. So, to coordinate all that with Central Dispatch was phenomenal. Just a good success story.
How long was the process before we had a helicopter on?
Probably about an hour, I guess. But that's what we had. But I mean, relatively quickly. I mean, it takes them a little bit of time depending where they're at in the state, and if they're not tied up on anything.
Those all done together, same time, you got
Yeah.
what jobs happen.
Yeah, we're coming. So, good.
Where's that helicopter base?
I believe Lansing, but I could be wrong.
They can get to anywhere pretty quick.
Right. And it very well could be somewhere else, but that seems where I would think it would be coming from. Not off the top of my head.
I imagine they have more than one to do them.
Yeah, I think they do. They have a couple they put up in the air. They probably section it off regionally or something. Soccer takes this out of the state. Good resource to add for us. Good.
Good job.
Oh yeah, thanks guys.
Any other elected officials or department heads like to give us an update this morning?
You all have your chance. Or I get up there. Okay. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to our new finance officer. In 1 second, they get these to you. Ingrid. This is Ingrid Fink. She is going to be serving as our new finance officer. She comes to us with experience doing public health in Genesee County. So she's learning more the county system first as she's working through helping us, and we're thrilled to have someone on so soon. So I'm sure things are going to work out well, and big welcome to Ingrid. So any questions? Would you like to say anything to her? She wasn't warned ahead of time.
Just thank you for the opportunity to serve the county. So I look forward to it. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Quick COVID update first, and then we'll move on to seniors. First of all, as you know, there are, the case counts have been going down considerably. I probably shouldn't say this too loud, but we had no new cases this morning. We had 3 yesterday. That's not saying it's gone away, and we'll see what happens in 2 weeks when the fallout from Memorial Day hits. But I don't expect it to be as bad as it was before, because we have a lot more people who have had it, for one thing, and we have a lot more people who have been vaccinated. At this point in time, we have given in Lapeer County 60,470 doses of vaccine. 44.27% of ages 12 and above have at least initiated the vaccination process, and 38.32% have completed it. As opposed to the state's average is 53.8% initiation and 46.8% completion. That's not to say that we're doing a lousy job. If you look at the map, you'll see that the area counties, we actually are better than most, except those to the south that, I was going to not say this, but who have money and could do a lot more at the beginning. But anyway, there were a lot more factors than that affected things. But anyway, so at this point in time, as you all know, there have been couple of changes, MDHHS orders, and the epidemic orders, and then you've got my OSHA. And I'm pointing that out because I think people are hearing the MDHHS and they're forgetting that we still have to abide by my OSHA if we don't want to get some hefty fines. So the MDHHS has eased a lot of the mask restrictions, especially, but for those who are vaccinated, and they do emphasize that throughout, that it's for the vaccinated folks. But the MyOSHA guidelines.
Vaccinated and antibodies or just vaccinated?
I'm sorry?
Vaccinated and antibodies or just vaccinated?
Vaccinated is how it reads. The clearance for quarantine is only 90 days after having had the illness. The MyOSHA guidance still requires has some requirements for workplace safety that go beyond that. So, however, they also do allow for businesses, if they choose to, ease some of those for those who are vaccinated. I didn't write the rules, I'm just letting you know what's there. As far as variants, just to give you an update on that, they are working to change that so you're not having to remember letters and a bunch of numbers. Right now, the B117, which is going to be called Alpha, very shortly here, over 80% of the variants that they've detected in our state have been that particular version. It is about 50% more contagious, but the P1, which we don't have much of in our state, is the problem with that one is more the fact that it doesn't seem to respond as well to the monoclonal antibody treatments. Why do I mention that? Because Illinois has a 20% case rate of the variants being P1, and especially in Chicago, and we have a lot of commuters going back and forth from that.
What's the P1 known as? What's the P1 known as?
P1 is going to be known as Gamma.
Okay.
And it's out of Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah, that helps me a lot better too. Yeah. But
What was the name of that?
as you know, there's been a lot of
Brazil is going to be
Brazil.
They're trying to get away from the countries because, as you know, a lot of people have taken and looked at Asian folks, and not everyone obviously, but there are some out there who are blaming things on country and people, and so they're trying to get away from any of that. Let me see. Current studies are showing that the vaccines are very effective. There are breakthrough cases. We have breakthrough cases with any vaccine because everyone's immune system is different. However, they are very few compared to the number of vaccines that have been given. And currently, there are still no recommendations for boosters at the moment. So that is the COVID update. And you had asked for some information for senior programs, so I did ask Paul to come, and I did ask him for some stats. I just realized that during COVID,
Kathy,
we had, yes, sir.
we just put that on the agenda.
Oh, okay, so you want to cover it later?
That's an agenda item. We just made an agenda item rather than going through.
Gotcha, okay. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. That will be coming up shortly, so
I'm sorry?
that should be coming up shortly. So, are there any other elected officials, department heads that like to give us an update this morning?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. How are you? I wanted to go over a few things with you this morning. First one is Commissioner Snyder. I've not forgotten about you, and I'll give you an answer right now. I believe your question was about millage funds, so I wanted to wait till the audit was through for 911, and I worked with Jackie and her department, and it's been very helpful because every single year I have to ask them to do us first, or one of the first ones, because we got to meet our requirements to the state in halfway through May to get all of our stuff into them, because we got the law reads that we got to have all this stuff in by then, so they always accommodate us. So I thank Jackie and her department for that very much every year. Because I know it's always crunch time, April, May, June for us and everybody else. So that's why I wanted to wait to get through that and go over some of the other budget items. So our millage balance, and this is going to combine our bonded, our unbonded, and leftover millage money from the property tax collection. So we have approximately 3.7 million, 3707 approximately. There were chargebacks and some of the other things that kind of go into all of that. So that's what the money combined in all the accounts are at this point. In the next couple of months, we work with the treasurer and the finance department. We do some banking issues and stuff like that they're working on. We're going to look to combine all those into one restricted fund balance. So that way it's in one spot. We keep better track of different accounts. It's restricted. It can only be used for what the election purposes were for, as we always have done. And that's what that money's going to do there. And we'll treat it exactly like we did the original millage that was done in 1996, 97, which all that money's gone. We spent all that down in the gas. So that one's gone, and now we got this one, and we're going to use that exactly the same way we treated the other one for large expenditures in accordance with the election. So that's, I hope that answers your question. Apologize for the delay, but I wanted to get as accurate as I can.
Could I just follow up on that? Is there, I'm still confused, is there still a separate village plus the village you're talking about here is just the one that's
2009.
2009 only, which was equipment?
Yep, to build the radio system, the right rate, the dispatch center, the phone systems, all the stuff that went into the whole.
It's not phone surcharge money at all, just, okay, no, just, thank you.
And then we also got through our 2020 budget here at a high level. I'm pleased to report that overall, through creative scheduling, reducing some of our shifts on midnights, reduce overtime, myself working the console as much as I can to reduce overtime when people are either sick, quarantined, vacations, all that good stuff there. So I'm feeling myself that in our surcharge 325 account, we were able to come in under budget by $32,000 and some change. So we just barely squeaked by under budget there. And then we also had a few other, well, that includes the 325, our 327, which is for your rentals and investments, I guess, and then our training fund. So altogether, all of those three accounts came in under budget. So we're pleased with that, which had me very worried, which was the whole point of going through our election campaign last year. So we should be starting to see the additional revenue come in later this year because we did get all the required documents in, we got the certified election document, the resolution you folks did for us, and all the other paperwork the state required. We got all that in on time, and we got confirmation from the state that they have received it, so it's not lost in, translation or whatever you want to call it. So now it's just a waiting game. Because now the state has to take our information along with all the other counties in the state, put it together in a report, and then they got by June 15th, I think, to report out to all the carriers out there of the current surcharge rates for the new year coming forward, which will include our new ones. So that's why I've been saying all along, second half to last quarter is when we'll start seeing the additional revenue come in. And we'll be planning our budget as we enter into budget season this year for next year with those additional funds. So that's my budget update. If anybody has any questions on that, I have a couple other things.
I guess follow up a little bit on that village. Do we have any specific plans for use of that village? Because now under the surcharge, you really can use that for some of the same purposes, right?
Similar, yes. The millage fund will treat just like before, and large expenditures and forklift upgrades like our phone systems down the road, hardware refreshes that are required, all those types of things. Surcharge money is our operational budget, with the bulk of that goes towards employee salaries and benefits and all the stuff that goes along with that. That is a large portion of our surcharge money. The surcharge funding can be used for similar items that we use our millage fund as well.
But the intent is to use the village.
Exactly the same way we gave to the people when they voted for it, for equipment purposes only. So millage funds, when we sold it to the public, we said we are not going to use this for pay raises or employee salaries, any of that stuff. Strictly for equipment for 911 system. And that's how the millage money is going to be used. And on the same note, as you know, the surcharge funds can only be used according to state law for certain items as well, which includes salary benefits on that, purchasing radios, computers, and things like that to make the system operate. So I am restricted on how both sets of funds can be used. One because we sold it that way, the other one is by law. That makes sense.
So despite the millage or the surcharge language, then there are some limitations still on what the state allows.
Absolutely. Like I can't just go and take 911 funds and go buy a Ferrari. That would be bad. So yeah, it lists the type of things that you can do. Like I can't just go and buy new chairs for the county commissioners. It would be a disallowable.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the budget? I'll move on to my other things.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to the original millage, not the original one, this millage, we, with that first round, what we did with the money is, we went out, purchased radios and stuff for all the different departments, the sheriff, the 911, EMS, we went through that whole gamut. Are we still replacing their radios?
Yes, it's part of the program.
It was? I didn't think it was. I thought they were supposed to buy their own after the first round.
What we've done is we took an inventory based on original amounts in the 90s. And then through time, we refined our inventory. And when we went out and did the millage, we got passed and we started buying radios. We said it's going to be a 1-for-1 swap. We're not buying you extra radios. So if your inventory says you got 20 radios on this department, we're going to take your old radios, because Central Dispatch still owns all the radios the sheriff uses, Goodland Fire uses. Those are my radios under my department. So we're going to go 1-for-1 swap. Take the old one, we'll give you a new one. And that program continues. We've had departments say, well, I want to get, 5 extra radios just in case. Put them on the shelf and sit there. You want them, you buy those 5. I'm not buying. That was the program, and that still continues. Now, we haven't really bought any new radios except for the last couple of times due to the pandemic, and we needed to upgrade because of the encryption process and all of that. But we're not going out buying spare radios because somebody wants one. They want extra, then they buy it, and I make an annotation on my list that says, okay, this serial number, Elmont Fire Department purchased on their own. So that way when it comes time next time, when we got to replace radios, I can say, okay, well, you have 25 radios, but 5 of those you bought. So we're not replacing those 5, but we'll replace the ones that we bought that we own. So that's how the program works. Because what will happen happen is everybody's gonna say, well, I want 10 extra radios. Central will buy them for me. And then they're gonna sit on the shelf, and the batteries sit on the shelf. If it had this happen, you know, 8 years go by and they never use those batteries, and then they want to use them. They say, well, they don't work. They're brand new. No, they're 8 years old. You got to use them, otherwise they go bad. You know, they're just like a Duracell battery. It's a battery. You have a shelf life. So that's how that works.
Okay, I was just, because I was on that, I was on your board then. And I was under the assumption when we did that the first round was on us, on the Millage, the second round was on them.
Yeah, it was close to that, yes.
Oh, it was that, it's kind of that change, it's kind of moved through the system.
It's always been a one for
Everything
one.
normally does, but that's, and the first Millage, what happened was when we came to a certain point, we shut it off. Rather than just continue to allow it to come in and come in and come in, we shut that one off, we never did that.
It ended in 2019.
I understand when it ended, but we could have shut it off earlier, but we didn't. Okay, any other questions on the radios and that system?
Okay, tagging along with some of the stuff you were asking about, the disallowable funds that came to the board before, talking about the FCC's 911 diversion fee issue that you guys did a resolution for, if you remember, not too long ago. I do have an update for everybody. And I'm happy with what I'm going to report today. Because the strike force that the acting chairperson of the FCC put together, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but these 3 bullet points here. They put a strike force together to look into the 911 fee diversion thing, if you recall, is the state of Nevada was cited as one of the states that divert their 911 funds to whatever they're not supposed to be doing, which caused this whole thing to start. I guess there's other states, but I don't know which ones. So anyway, this strike force they're putting together is supposed to determine the effectiveness of any federal laws, including regulations, policies, and practices, or budgetary or jurisdictional constraints regarding how the federal government can most expeditiously end 911 fee diversion. 2, consider whether criminal penalties would further prevent 911 fee diversion and determine the impacts of 911 fee diversion. That's apparently their goals. The part that I'm happy about is if you look on page 3, I put a little arrow there, and the last page, another one. These 2 individuals under Public Safety Organization, Mel Meyer, Captain, Oakland County Sheriff's Office, that's our Oakland County right next to us. I know him, he's a friend of mine, super awesome guy, and he is on the strike force. And the last page, you'll see April Hines from NENA, the National Emergency Number Association. She's a previous director for Eaton County. So we got 2 people on the strike force from Michigan who know our law, our legislature, and how we do things. And they know that we don't divert funds to the state. That makes me very happy to see these 2 individuals on the strike force, because I know they will have Michigan and Lapeer County's best interests in mind with the strike force. So I wanted to give you an update there, and it's public notice of what they're doing. Any questions on that? Because I got one last quick thing to go on. Okay. The last thing I wanted to go over quickly was our central dispatch version of Clemens CAD. And if you guys remember when Commissioner Edie had asked about this years ago when we were having troubles when we first came on board with it. So Clemens launched our central dispatch version of CAD about a month ago now. So we've been using it where it allows us to more efficiently and easily put departments on calls. So if there's a personal injury accident with a rescue, let's just say, in a certain location where we have to send, let's say, the sheriff's office, the state police, the Emily City Police, the Emily City Fire Department, because they got to get the jaws over there, and then Lapeer County EMS. So I got 5 departments for one incident. The way it's been since we came on this system has been the dispatcher has to clone that call on their screen 5 times to put every department. Every department had to have their own line. So that's one call, 5 things on your screen, plus this traffic stop, that call, this ambulance call, and then your screen just gets bigger and bigger. And it makes it very difficult for our dispatchers to do things. The way their system was designed works well in Oakland County because everybody dispatches for themselves. They have 18 PSAPs. We have 1. So Lake Orion dispatch is only for Lake Orion. They rarely have somebody else come in and do stuff with them from mutual aid. So it was an eye-opening thing for both them and us, how we operate. We operate very differently. So what they did is they made it so that way we can have one incident, but all the units and all the departments on there at the same incident. So we're not clogging up our screen, we have to clone and put codes in and do all this crazy stuff. So that has been a huge improvement. It's taken a long time to get here, but it hasn't come without its bugs. You know, there's glitches, software stuff. This doesn't work right. It's running a little slow here, but Clemis has been working with us literally daily to make enhancements and improvements, and then they'll push a new version out the same day. And they're refining it every day over the last month so far. So I'm happy with that. That they're being responding to us. So just wanted to give you an update that the efficiency of dispatching is getting better finally with this CAD system, and they've responded to our requests.
Just out of curiosity, do they charge us for this extra
No.
adaptation for Clemis?
No, it's still the same flat fees that we've had.
Interesting. Okay.
So the Clemens system, is that the one that was developed in Oakland County?
Correct.
So, and they're able to tweak it to fit Lapeer County's needs?
Yes. And the reason they're able to do that is because A, I've been beating them up for the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And 2, St. Clair County is on the Clemis system and they operate just like we do. I believe Huron County is or is going on board. They operate like we do. And so they've been onboarding several agencies and counties that operate in the same fashion we do. So it's put more pressure on them to develop a version that fits our needs. So it's not, so I do have to give a little bit of credit to like St. Clair and Huron and some of these others, because without them also putting pressure, I may not be where I am today.
So does that create any challenges when is Genesee, for example, on a different system?
They are on a different system.
So does that create challenges for you guys? Because, you know, Genesee obviously borders us, and I'm sure there's some interaction between the 2 counties. The fact that they're on a different system, does that create its own challenges?
No, the CAD system, computer-aided dispatch, is just a database, and we enter all our calls in. You call 911, we're typing all that in, we're dispatching the sheriff's office to it, all that stuff. So that's what we use. It doesn't make any difference between the counties of that system. What is extraordinarily helpful between the counties is the radio system. And we're almost all of us in Michigan are on the same system now, so we can very easily communicate over the radio with one another. It does have an advantage with Clemis if you were also on the same thing. So like St. Clair County and Lapeer County, we back each other up. So if for some reason we have to bug out for our dispatch center, it's flooded or fire, who knows. We can go to St. Clair County. They have the same radio system and the same CAD system, Clemis. And we can log into our Clemis account from their computers. So we can see all of the same stuff we see here. We have the same radio system. We have it set up to where I can page out our ambulances and our fire departments from St. Clair County over the internet. It's not going to be on their pagers because our system is closed for that. But we can still reach them and get them their dispatch calls. And the same thing for them. They can come over our center and do the exact opposite and dispatch over there. We've done that a couple of times, helping them out. I haven't had to send my people there yet. But they've come over to Lapeer a couple of times because of problems with their phone system upgrades. So they had to be down for a period of time. So their director sent some people over to my office, and they logged into my place, used my phones, my radio, and my Clemis, and they did their dispatching from here. So they can also, we also loaded our configuration files for our radio system on their computers and theirs on ours. So I can bring up my radios over there. The only thing we don't share alike between us and St. Clair is our phone system, but that's not, you know, we put their users in on our system, they put ours in, just a little learning curve, so it operates the same. And the other nice thing is going to be the phone service upgrade. You guys recently approved that we're working through right now. I'll have the ability to not only transfer my 911 lines, but I'll be able to transfer my business lines, which we get the bulk of our calls on anyway, to St. Clair using this all digital system, which I can't do with the whole AT&T stuff I have today. So that'll be a further enhancement for backups.
Any other questions?
Personnel shop teacher used to say, questions, comments, 4-letter words.
Yep.
Have a nice day.
Right. Thanks for the two. Quentin, you would want to make a comment on AT&T?
I would.
Well, go ahead.
I would. Thank you for that. I would like to say thank you to Jeff, and I'll say thank you to John Bossel. He's here, he's not here right now. We took the opportunity to go through departments, specifically looking at contracts. So we started with AT&T being one of our larger phone contracts within the county, examining those contracts line by line, account by account, uncovered that we had existing lines that were not being used. We had toll-free numbers that were disconnected. We had numbers that were routed to Walmart gift cards. We had referenced numbers that were active but not on our accounts, but we were being charged for these things. Went on a deep dive, spent hour and a half yesterday, hour and a half with AT&T account representative, remedied all those issues line by line. We're in excess of $4,000 per month in savings now through cancellations of contracts. And we're moving towards isolating every single contract that we have and cleaning them up. Because if somebody were ever asked, government waste, inefficiencies, the one thing that we can handle is our own contracts because we negotiate those directly. And we're just going to be good stewards of that. And we are well underway to saving $4,000 a month through AT&T cancellation.
Thank you for that. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and we'll put it to better use.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Would any other elected officials or departments like to give us an update this morning? David.
Good morning. I wasn't gonna say anything until Jeff brought up Columbus, and I just want to let you all know of an issue we're having now at Animal Control, which is actually hindering how we do our jobs. We never used to have an issue running lean or getting a reg done on a plate, like if we're at a house and somebody doesn't want to open the door for us, we can find out who lives there or get a house code or a date of birth. We have now been completely shut off the lien. Apparently, lien does not allow Animal Control as a law enforcement agency run lien or let anybody like dispatch or the sheriff's department run it for us. So when the prosecutor's office, and we still do criminal complaints, we've got a couple felonies up there right now that I can't even run criminal histories for, and the prosecutor's requested it from us. Can't do it. I can't get a date of birth for a ticket now if I don't have 95% of the time when we knock on a door, people don't answer because they don't want to see Animal Control. So they think they're going to get a ticket for their dog or something. So what we normally do is run a plate and get a name and address and date of birth, and we write the ticket and stick it on their door. It's never an issue. Well, now we can't do that. So we can't turn tickets in without dates of birth. So what my officers have to do now is call a township, try to talk to the treasurer or the clerk, and see who lives at that address and try to find out information that way. Or we have a hunting app that one of the girls put on her computer that we can bring up and find who lives on that plot of property and try to do it that way. Absolutely ridiculous what we have to do now just to write a ticket. I think it's, excuse me, but BS. I have been on the phone with everybody from Jeff and Joe and Robbie went out at the sheriff's department all the way up the state police ladder, including Gary Howell and Kevin Daly. not getting very far. But a while back, I talked to Jeff about possibly getting on Clemens and what that would entail. And in the past, Clemens didn't have an application for animal control. Apparently they do now. And I actually got a call yesterday from a lady there that said that her, they must have several boards or something, but her board said we could join Clemens, but they don't know how much they want to charge us. And they still don't know how much they want to charge us. But I would have to request to their Clemens board, the big board, I guess, to become a member. Which she doesn't think it'll be a problem, but there would be a fee. The only thing Clemens would give us would be, obviously they have a huge database with all the counties that they cover, and that would give us a search engine in Clemens, the search names that possibly would be in there that we could get that information. We need to even write a ticket anymore. Tickets are a lot of our funding, as you well know. So just another hit on my funding here with tickets, but so that would help us that way. It would also give us, like, we are the only entity, I think, in the county that still handwrites tickets, because everybody types them in their police cars and they get printed off, they go directly to court, and there's no handwriting. This would give us that capability also to write the tickets in the car, print them off, and then that copy would go directly to district court. So just making you guys aware of some other obstacles we're running into now, trying to do our jobs. And so I've been actively trying to remedy this. This is a statewide problem. I've called animal controls throughout the state. And if you are under a sheriff's department, the sheriff is your boss, you can run lean. But if you're a separate entity or through the health department, like we are, we're not allowed. So even though we're deputized and all that, that doesn't matter. So just want to go ahead.
So yeah, the last part of your report was going to be my question on what's going on in the rest of the state. So you could take an org chart, move an entity from one box to another, move it from the health department, move them underneath the sheriff, and so long as that's the new organizational structure of animal control, then you can use lean according to the state.
Actually, that was one question that the field services guy asked me was, do you have an organizational chart that shows you under the sheriff's department? I said, no, we're not under the sheriff's department. We're deputized. But, and I don't blame the sheriff. Animal issues can become, really bad for an elected official at times. And I'm sure Scott doesn't want anything to do with us, for that reason. And, which I get, I understand.
Dave, I have a question.
Yes.
Are you still under the health department?
No, I'm
your own.
Yes, I'm your own entity, and there are others out there like me. Like I said, and they all have the same problem. And their answer to us is, if you need help, call the sheriff's department or call the local police department, or they can turn the complaint over to them. Well, I'm not going to turn every complaint I have over to the sheriff's department so they can run a criminal history or call them out every time I need to write a ticket. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to my officers that are trying to do a job. And even though they're probably willing to do that, I don't like that answer.
So what's your remedy?
My remedy right now is, I've been everywhere. I've been to district court.
What are you asking us to do?
No, I'm making you aware of a situation I'm going through that I'm trying to remedy, that I hope that maybe with the help of Senator Daley or Representative Howell, they can do something to change that. Because the state police literally just kind of blow me off.
I hope you're kidding.
Well, I don't know what else.
You think Senator Daley or Gary Howell is going to be able to get this resolved
in a reasonable time fashion?
Well, I didn't say a reasonable time frame.
Okay, so
I'm just
so
saying,
then,
I'm hoping that maybe
what-
they
what-
could
what
do
about-
something.
so at that point, then if you guys can't write tickets, and that sort of stuff, then the revenue is gonna get worse for animal control. So what is Macomb, what is St. Clair?
Macomb is under the sheriff's department. Eaton County is under the sheriff's department. If they're not under a sheriff's department, they have the same problem. They have to call a deputy or a police officer to come write their ticket, just like we're gonna have to do.
So it sounds like that's the rule, they gotta get under the sheriff's department to do that. That sounds like where we have to.
Tennessee's not under the sheriff's department. No, they're different.
No, and so they have the same issue we do. It's,
But that is why it is an appropriate, it's not the only avenue to take, but it is an appropriate avenue to reach out to our state legislative partners.
exactly.
Because ultimately, they need to look at directing the state police that if it's a law enforcement effort, it shouldn't matter what the entity was called. If we have
I
the
agree.
ability under law to write the citation, we should have the ability under law to turn around and do the investigation
Right.
and use the state and federal tool that lien is intended to be.
Yes. And that's my
I
fight.
certainly don't disagree with that, but we know that if that's the avenue that it has to go down, that's a long.
And
That's what I'm saying, it's not the only avenue, but it is appropriate. I would certainly
I
hope
mean,
that.
I've gone in every
Office-
direction I can think of, Brian, to try to solve this, and that was just an avenue. I didn't stop here, I went up the ladder, I'm trying to do what I can. And district court doesn't want, I mean, they're offering to help too, they will look in their database to see if they can get that information. But the reason you can't turn a ticket in without a date of birth or something is because you could have a Brian Zender Senior and a Brian Zender Junior at the same address, and then, you know, whose ticket is it? They just gotta throw it out. You know, it's just, it's a stupid little thing, but it's a problem that they don't wanna have to deal with.
Well, isn't there some sort of number associated with the whole? Law enforcement thing?
There's an ORI number, okay?
ORI?
Yes,
Okay.
and you have to, you know, that's an MCOLS kind of a thing, you know, their officers are MCOL certified. We're not MCOL certified police officers. That's a police officer with arrest powers, that sort of thing. My officers don't have arrest powers, but they do have powers to write a ticket or to do a criminal complaint, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, that's how it's very strict in what they allow. And we were doing it before, just, you know, it was a courtesy for them to do it for us. When they got audited and they got caught and they were told, you know, stop doing it or they'll get fined or in trouble or they could lose their lien. You know, so I can't blame them either. You know, it's just a frustrating thing.
Who's that?
Sure. Well, the 911 and the sheriff's department were doing things for us, you know, because I
Before they
don't
were-
have a lien terminal, so, you know, they were running these things before, but they've been told they can't do it until it's got shut off, so.
What does Genesee County do? What is their process? Is their process?
Same thing as we're, I mean, they can't, this is a call all over the state, it's the same thing. If they don't have access to lien, if they need it, they have to turn something over to a police department or
Okay, so
Yeah,
they
have
turn
to-
everything over to the
have
police
to
department.
do, yeah, because that way, you know, if I had a complaint, if I turned it over to the sheriff's department, they could do the complaint and run it, you know, through them. I just can't do it, you know. I'm just saying, I don't like the fact that every complaint or ticket I wanna run, I have to ask an officer to help me do that.
Well, I mean, it almost looks like, this is me looking at it, it almost looks like if you're not, because the only way you can run it is if you go through the sheriff's department now. Now, it was kind of discussed, the sheriff's department doesn't really want it, but it's gonna end up with them anyways. So either ends up with you being under them directly and you being able to handle under them, or you giving all of your tickets to them to handle. And that's pretty much what it's going down to. Without
I'd like to know is how many counties are under the sheriff and how many counties are independent. If we do that number, if there's a big number of you guys, there should be a big push to get this moving faster. It's not a diversion situation for everybody.
Well, I think there's more counties that are on their own or through a health department or something like that than there are under the sheriff's department. I don't know the figures on that.
But under the health department, it's still good for take it out.
You have to be a certified law enforcement agent, chemical certified, or a court system, like the courts could get. You know, I guess, we don't have it here, the prosecutor doesn't have it. Again, I'm not asking for it, I'm just throwing it out there.
And you're saying another possible solution is the Clemens.
Well,
If you
it
can get
wouldn't be a
involved with
complete
one.
situation, but like I said, their database is so huge with names and because, I mean, there's so many counties using it that any contact, like if they would have with you, your name would be in Clemens. And that would give us the opportunity to search a name in Clemens to see if it was, in that system, which, we could do that, because that's just a reporting system. It's just legal, we're not allowed to use.
But even Clemens could just be a band-aid to the problem, one more database, one more search.
It's not complete.
But ultimately, that's what I'm saying, long-term, ultimately, I would hope that how the daily staff that are gonna work on it to see.
Kevin told me that he was gonna look into it and see, I understand it, right? It was just, I knew I had to go that route, but it was more frustration than anything else, because it's like, I don't know who else to turn to. I've gone all the way up the ladder with the state police, and, just being a retired police officer, I never had these issues before, and it's just like always something, a roadblock, and we're law enforcement, but yet we can't use the tools that any other law enforcement agency can use, so.
Sounds like we need to probably have a discussion with yourself, with the sheriff, and, it seems like something's gonna have to be done different.
We could help writing letters and sending different types of resolutions,
Well,
but
we'll see what, this is all very recent, and so we'll see where it goes and what happens.
maybe the state will correct it, but
So,
no, the state,
we'll see. Again, I'm sure that would be a long process, but
So has the rule changed here recently?
no, it hasn't. It's just,
The interpretation did,
well,
they knocked out the sheriff.
I know, we had an audit apparently, and, I'm told they can't do that. I can't even run background checks on my employees. They told me to go to iChat, and that's $15 a time. Fire departments can run a background check, but I can't.
But the audit is recent.
The audit is recent, I guess. I don't know, like Jeff says yes, so. Yeah, so, because I always do background checks on my volunteers and our employees. Can't even do that anymore. Totally shut off from anything with me.
well, we'll try to help you, I don't know.
No, I know. I wasn't even gonna bring it up until he brought up Columbus.
Sorry.
Sure.
Dave, real quick, the iChat charge, is that a recent thing? Because we haven't been paying for our chat back.
I don't know, to be honest. I was told it was $15 a shot on iChat. That's what I was told.
I'll talk to Tammy, we haven't been paying for any.
Are there any other elected officials or department heads that would like to speak to this board this morning? Hearing and seeing the one opposed elected official department head updates, move for public time, would anybody in this room like to speak to the board during the first public time? Apparently not. Hearing and seeing no one, I'll close the first public time. Brings us down to the resolution to establish the truth of taxation, public hearing. Jack, Clinton.
second. This is a, proposed resolution regarding the proposed public hearing on increasing property taxes. In this case, since we haven't had experience as far as proposing the resolution, should I read the resolution in its entirety or submit that it be passed for motion?
Sure, I'll move the resolution. It's a standard process that
Right.
every year we complain about, and every year we thank our media outlet for, they do a great article trying to educate the public. As an example, just talking about Lansing and laws, and maybe just an example of where legalese just complicates. It's supposed to be a notice to the public, and it is the most confusing, required boilerplate language, especially the fourth whereas. It's basically saying the property taxes are going to be 4.23% higher than they'd be if you didn't go to the hearing. Looks like it's a tax increase. And then it's further enforced by whoever heard of something increasing by a negative. But that's the legalese, that even if you don't have a hearing, your property tax is going to increase by negative 0.123% over what it was the previous year. So if the state was really going to be serious about truth in taxation and educating the public, to figure out a way to be able to talk to the public like the rest of us do with English language rather than like this is. Sorry for this boilerplate. Welcome to government. And again, thank you to our media outlets for letting our citizens know that that's just the legal wording we have to use. I'll move the resolution as it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Here's what.
We have a motion to move the resolution. I need a roll call.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Hemming,
Yes.
Commissioner Jarvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Zender,
Yes.
Chairman Horn.
Yes. Moving on. Done that. The additional items, we have a couple of those. First one, Paul, would you like to address this board?
Well, okay. First of all, good morning. I really wasn't, maybe I misunderstood Kathy. She wanted me here to answer any questions you guys might have. But I really don't have a report. I prepared some numbers for her, comparing January through April of 2019 with what we experienced in 2021 for some of our major programs. Kind of indicate what was going on with those programs. Talk about those numbers a little bit if you'd like. Our largest program, which is the Living Meal program, through the first 4 calendar months of 2019, we ran just shy of 31,000 home delivered meals. In 2021, if you combine home delivered meals with our what we've been able to consider our temporary congregate clients, if you combine those two numbers, we're just shy of 44,000. So we've seen a huge increase during this COVID pandemic with our home delivered meal numbers. Naturally, our senior centers have been closed, so the congregate meals that we've normally been serving there got shifted to the home delivered meal program. The AAA and the state allowed us to do that.
Since 2020 was so screwy, I had him give you the 2019 numbers so you had something better to compare to as far as normalcy and not normal. So,
I guess a question would be is when do you anticipate the senior center being reopened?
I would anticipate the senior centers reopening in July.
on the first like the rest of the state.
And the only reason I say that is because normally what's happened in our world with senior citizens is there'll be comments in the press or the governor's office makes a broad comment, like the broad restrictions will be released or lifted on July 1. Well, in the senior world, through the state, we get further restrictions because the seniors are the most vulnerable population. There are some restrictions there that we have to meet. So if it is true, and I expect it is, that the broad restrictions will be lifted July 1, I'd like to wait a couple days to see if anything filters down to us. So I would expect, if not the week of I think we're off the 5th because of July 4th is on. If we don't open that week, it'll be the following.
Realize also that they've been doing 2-day-a-week exercise, had been done previously. Then it got cold. It reopened again yesterday in my city. The problem with Lapeer is that the volunteer who has been running it is not returning, so we have to find another instructor for the exercise at the Lapeer Center. So they are doing some activities that way. But yeah, we're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with any other changes.
And we've been running the transportation program out of the city center all night. We just reduced the number of passengers in the van, but we've been providing transportation. I provided numbers on our in-home programs. Those are kind of the opposite of the home delivered meal program. Roughly with personal care homemaking, comparing the 2 years, 2019 to 2021, it's in the neighborhood of half what we're providing. The rest is much less than that. We've had our challenges with providing aid service during the COVID pandemic. Initially, if I get my years right, it would seem like this is a long time. It would be March, April, May, June of 2020. Most of our clients, virtually all our in-home clients, did not want aides entering their home during those months. We also had 3 aides immediately resign once the COVID thing started ramping up. They wanted nothing to do with going into people's homes. They had wanting to do with PPE, personal protection equipment. So we haven't replaced those aides yet. We're having difficulty replacing aides. There's a number of reasons for those that I don't have any control over, such as unemployment benefits being so high, that sort of thing. So our in-home numbers are drastically reduced right now. We're trying to rebound them. We did lose a lot of aid time due to sickness. Either the aide was sick or somebody in their home, their child was sick. And naturally, if a child's sick, they've got quarantined for 14 days. And so the aide can't go anywhere. She can't stay home. So we lost a lot of time with that too. So it's been a real challenge to get the in-home numbers, even with that.
I have a question, Kathy. You said that or Paul, either one of you, that you started the exercise program in Lincoln. How are you getting the word out to the people that used it before? Are you notifying them? Or?
Generally with the exercise groups in both centers, they have their own phone tree that once we get word out to one, it's spread to that entire group. I haven't checked with Tracy to see how many showed up yesterday. Last spring when we were running outdoor exercise, they were doing 12 to 16.
So kind of to dovetail onto that, outreach is my broader question. Clearly, this has been a year, and now we're going to head towards normalization. So how do we plan on with, like, especially the second page you're talking about, the home care and the rest and stuff like that. As we start to get those things back in place, not only is there a population of people that really did not want that service out of fear of the pandemic, and then obviously there'd be a turnover too, where we have some new that have fallen into that bucket. This was one of the questions I was getting from elected official counterpart at the local government level. How do we reach out to our senior community throughout Lapeer County as we start to head towards normalization, not only the senior centers, but overall the services that we provide, and make them aware of what services are available to them. Just kind of curious what your guys' thoughts and plans are on that.
Well, first of all, we have to be able to hire aides.
Right.
We have people who would like services. We need aides to be able to provide it, and that's a huge problem right now. But we're what, 3 applications in the last?
It's just not here in Lapeer County. There's,
Right.
the state indicates
Yeah.
that there's roughly a shortage of 42,000 aides who are needed in the state this year.
As soon as we have something that definitive, we will get it out to the newspapers. All of them have been very good about, I send them information twice a week at least, and in between when they ask, to get it out in the newspaper. As far as additional, I know Paul has his network as well.
And Silver Threads will start back, Silver Threads was a big part of the LAU there. That'll start up again.
And then also BAAA as a partner, not only as a funding source, as a pass-through source. Right. It's always been a sore spot for us. But then one of the things that they do bring is to be able to have some funding to be able to do network coverage like they've done before in the past on TV and radio and stuff like that. If this is, like we all know it is, a statewide and a national problem of hiring and getting things re-geared up again, can we have discussions with our BAAA counterpart that can they do some publicity? They've always done their publicity about, BAAA is available for this or for that, but maybe they could actually do some media outreach as far as there's a need to provide these services to our senior community. Have you thought about doing this? If so, contact your local. I'd like to see us include them in.
Lorraine sits on the collaborative, and we talk to the other as well. The other factor, though, is then wages and the fact that they're still getting paid a lot on unemployment, and that's one piece that I have no control over. Is the wage scale.
That's the piece that's hurting every.
I'm sorry?
That's the piece that's hurting everybody in this county.
Right.
And that piece needs to be cleaned up and speak up louder. Because, I'd be stupid if I didn't stay home making more money than if I went to work.
That will be going away.
That's what I'm
Well,
It's gonna be a big rush.
That's gonna be a rush.
Yeah.
And my recommendation right now is spend my way. Now's the time to apply for those jobs. You get it for because they'll hire you and you have a shot at it. Because once that floodgate comes open, all those qualified people will come back to work.
Paul, it's a pleasure meeting you. I don't think we've officially met before, but it is a pleasure. When it comes to in-home care and respite care, are there particular job training certifications or industry recognized credentials that these people need to have in order to apply?
It's a certified nursing assistant.
So CNA for either or?
Yes.
So this brings up a bigger point. I think maybe we should explore maybe at a later time. The unemployment issue that we're competing with, that will run out. And when we do, these jobs will fill. The CNAs will go first in this category because they'll apply for those jobs. A long-term solution for Lapeer County residents is to examine where our needs are across the board for industry recognized certificates and job training. As a workforce development issue, I think we need to be prepared for that. Bring up a good point. And if there's a way to train people in those areas specifically for your programs, why not train up our people within the county? I'd love to have an extended conversation about what that actually looks like, and then examine the pool of candidates for CNA and see where we can help. BAAA, job training funds.
Michigan works, all their offices are now
Correct.
They've got a lot of programs to do a lot of training for a lot of people,
Correct.
at no charge to those particular people. So maybe you ought to coordinate this also with Michigan Works, because
That's exactly right.
And then there still has to be the motivation to go and do that.
well, when their money runs out, there'll be plenty of
That's-
motivation, Kathy. I mean, that's a matter of just timing.
Right.
And by August, you're gonna see the floodgates open up,
Right.
and unfortunately, there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna come up short on this deal.
Right.
Then you gotta
That's true.
see, you're already seeing, people writing in, even to the county press, that we need a fourth check. Really? Dial?
Do we have waiting lists in effect in home or the rest of it?
The waiting list, the active waiting list, we consider an active waiting list. We are going through the process of seeing how many of those people want services. Some of them have passed away, some of them are now in nursing home. Once the clients decided they didn't want us in their home anymore, we stopped maintaining the waiting list. And we just kept telling people, if someone did call back in 6 months and we'll see where we are, if we have a need available, that sort of thing. So we didn't want to keep piling people up on a waiting list and then have to go back through that at a later date and make a bunch of phone calls to find out that
Are
people
people
passed away.
starting to call to get back on that list?
Yes,
So the pressure is there to get some staff hired, trained,
yes.
or hopefully pre-trained for these positions. But one category you don't have on this list, chore services. Any update on how we're doing with that?
Shore services has been running right along pretty much as normal. A lot of what we do with chores is outside, so we didn't have that face-to-face contact with clients. When we did, when it came to health safety issues inside the home, naturally we followed all the orders that we needed to follow with masking, gloves, and all that stuff. We separated the client from the area that we were working in. So,
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, chores continues regularly.
Because that's to keep people in their home, which is one of our primary goals. Your senior program services is exactly that. Chores are a big part. Keep them there.
I had a quick question, and just to note on the BAAA, at the last meeting, Suzanne also discussed the fact that they're low on aides and the waiting list is getting long and it's hard to find people, so it's everywhere, even at BAAA. My question is, the advisory board has not met in, I think, over a year now. When do you suspect they will be meeting in? Because my concern is, they're kind of the direct oversight on a lot of this, or have direct visibility. And the fact it hasn't been meeting is a little bit of an issue. I understand why, it makes total sense, but just curious when that's gonna get
July.
July?
Yeah.
Are they gonna be,
First Tuesday of July.
Okay.
I think the day after.
are they gonna help making the decision as far as opening and, or at least advising the decisions on how to open and what they feel is safe, being seniors themselves?
Well, as far as opening, we're gonna be open. Like I said, if it's not that particular week, it'll be the week after that, but,
At the moment, the seniors fall under that broad category of the NBHHS epidemic orders. The staff falls under the MIOSH orders, but the others fall under that broad, which opens up July.
Dial?
So is the state providing in effect, through one of those avenues, the rules for how you're gonna be, what you're gonna have to do if you open the centers?
they provide the guidance. Just last week, they issued new guidance regarding congregate meal. But the congregate meal guidance referred to the MDHHS order as of June 1, which doesn't do a lot for us in terms of opening things up. But I suspect in July it will. So, and in my Zoom calls with other directors around the state, there are centers just starting to open now. Most of them, the larger ones, such as OPC and Rochester, they've been running a lot of virtual programs, a few exercise things because they have a pool and a track and a lot of different things down there. But most senior centers have been closed.
Any other questions?
Just a brief question. The senior board, is that at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
It's been a long time. I'm trying to
Well, that's
ramp
what
up,
I was
trying to
trying.
ramp up myself.
Okay, thank you.
Linda, she actually had talked to me yesterday, I think it was yesterday, about I was watching the Millage. Because we missed the last time that we hadn't had excess dollars. Somebody was listening to us again.
Noah.
Are we watching that, Kathy?
I'm sorry,
The millage, when does that millage come due for the senior millage?
it's not for another.
August of next year. August
Yeah, it's gonna say a year.
So,
Yeah.
we got collect,
We don't wanna slip behind like last time.
yeah, that would probably be a good idea unless you guys had a lot of money stored someplace.
Yeah.
So we can live through a year without the village money.
Well, I mean, what comes into the county is different than what I see in my budget.
I understand.
So that's what I pay attention to, is what comes into my budget. What comes into the county, that's finance department. So I'm not really up to date with what the balance is in the village.
But it's not the balance.
But yes, the millage does have to be reapplied for next year. And I know there's a process. It was done before my time the last time, so, but I do understand there's a process that has to be followed, that takes time, ahead of time to get things written, so.
Usually at least at the advisory board level, we start discussion in January. I think the language has to be set in May.
Yeah, there's specific time.
And then it's on the ballot.
Has to go to the ballot in August or.
I think that's what Gary is suggesting is, in the past, pre-COVID, our health department director, would not have been so consumed with being a health officer and might have had a little bit more hands-on oversight of that. She's gonna probably rely on you to just kind of help with that process. And the first part of that process would be just putting together just a same as our budget calendar, and you guys can almost give them that format. And it's just basically a millage calendar that says, we have to have it approved and available by, normally what you aim for is 2 elections prior to when you're gonna run out of money. So if there's a problem with that election, you got one more shot. And then with our election cycles, you wanna make sure that both of those fall under the regularly scheduled election cycle. You don't want to ever have to waste taxpayers' dollars having a special election. So you already, by walking through that process, then you can turn around and say, okay, here's what we have to have it by, here's the 2 elections that come at that point. Now, that first election, when does the language need to be in for that first election? Okay, now we need to buy ourselves some time to work on that language.
And have it approved
That's your
prior
little,
to the
that's your
time.
little one-page worksheet, millage, calendar.
So
just
there's gonna have to be research done with the different townships, cities who have a tendency now to capture extra voted millage. And
I'm sorry, you did?
we do have an issue now with certain municipalities capturing extra voted millage, like senior millage. And using it in their DDAs, so we're gonna have to deal with that, because that's gonna have to be on the ballot. The language.
So time needs to be allowed, in other words, to make all those contacts and get messages back.
Well, and I'm smart enough to know that I know a lot more about public health and nursing than I do about legalese. And so, yeah, it will be done in such a way that somebody who knows the language requirements, that it has some input on how it's written, so.
Any other questions for Paul? Or Kathy?
Thanks for the update report.
Yeah, thanks for the
Have a
report.
good day.
We have and I think we should do this today. The, motion for
Yeah, Chairman, there's a draft motion that's put on the dais at the beginning of the meeting that's regarding a TA between county and the POAM unit B, which is the deputies unit. That meets with the discussions that we've had throughout the process, so I would move that draft motion.
the support. We have a motion and support. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's do that one today. Were there any other additional items or something that we're missing? No, all right, draft motions.
Last two pages of your packet are the draft motions from last week's May 27th Committee of the Whole meeting. I will move page 1 of 3, motions 1 through 5.
We have a motion and support. All in favor of that motion?
Question, Dan. With number one, since that was a little bit unresolved, could we maybe deal with that first? The prosecutor's request.
It was unresolved. It was unresolved.
I think there was information that was going to be sought to make sure that, because we hadn't seen the language for the contract.
That was, yeah. The only thing that was unresolved was the question that we had for the prosecutor was, is corporate counsel going to review the contract on it? When he was here last week, that was one of the questions that we asked him, was whether or not he reviewed all of those legalese. And he said it was a long, detailed, and he had reviewed it as corporate counsel, and that he approved the contract. So I can't imagine any other step that would need to be taken to the prices.
The only other question was that he would put the drug forfeiture funds that were available under a restricted line, and he has already agreed to do that. There'll be a restricted line set up for those.
I think another question was, was there any concern with adding this software related to our general technology plan and the other technology people that we've got that service the county?
I can make a comment on that. I spoke with Mr. Bartley and with CNET, and I provided them with the specs required to run Carvel software. There's no major issue. We have the right operating system. We have the necessary software. There's one follow-up that has to happen, and this is with remote support software. So depending on the level of severity of your issue within the software, it's where we're placed on severity levels. If it's a severity 1 versus a 3 to general assistance, it's kind of the how they address our immediate needs, and they do that through remote software. And so what we're just trying to clear up is that remote software unlimited? What is their firewall capabilities and their security? So when they remote in, it can't, somebody with malintent can't backdoor them to get to us. And so that's what we're calling to ensure right now. But as far as our capabilities are concerned, we are okay. There's nothing major investments that need to happen. Upgrade software.
And the other part of this is it's going to take over years just to even get that many to do this. That's what moving this process along. We're going to have other conversations down the road.
So that's why we're just moving the funds in a restricted line, so they're available when you have.
Once we agree to the contract, though, we're committed. They've had very highly qualified lawyers write this. I've been my review of liability indemnification and termination. I haven't seen one written like this in a long time.
That's why I'm saying we gotta defer to
I
our,
think it's only 1 year.
we gotta defer to them as our corporate counsel. They're gonna know more than us because that contract.
It's amazing.
Okay, you satisfied?
We've satisfied that.
Yeah, well, we did wanted to do the first 5. Dial, he wanted to have some questions answered on number 1. So your motion is still to do the first 5, right? And there's support for the first 5. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then page 2 of 3, motions 6 through 11, I'll move those.
We have a motion and support for 6 through 11. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Back page of the packet, 1 motion, on page 3 of 3, motion number 12, I'll move that.
Support. We have a motion and support to move number 12. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let's see. Is anything else we need to talk about out here? Got the draft motions done. There's any ad hoc committee updates needed? I don't think there's any needed right now, is there? Okay, so that brings us down to fiscal planning, budget discussions. I don't think we have anything to discuss there, do we, Quentin?
No, Jeff,
All right, so Lenny, why don't you pay the bill?
Move, road commission's audit motion, we'll move the county's audit motion with the controller's signature.
Support. Motion and support. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes?
Commissioner Jarvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Commissioner Younger? Commissioner Henry?
Yes.
Chairman Ruth?
Yes. Spent $2,384,123.20. Harder taxpayer money this week. Brings us down to the second public time. Would anybody like to address this board during the second public time? Hearing seeing no one, I'll close the second public time. Commissioner reports. Rick?
Just got a couple items. One, I attended the other day a meeting in Flint. Everybody should kind of be aware of what's happening with the Michigan redistricting. And you could get involved and look at what's happening, how they might be dividing up counties, their elections and stuff. This is something everybody should be aware of. I want to split the county, which is kind of a chaos. While I was there was people from Saginaw, Brighton, now over to from Sanilac, Tuscola. They're all concerned about how they're trying to divide all these counties. But people can get involved by going to michigan.gov/MICRC to learn more. And if they want to try to help redistrict themselves, they can go on michigan-mapping.org. They can kind of draw their own redistricting. But people need to make comments, get involved, at least learn what's going on around the redistricting area so they're aware, not shocked what's happening. So it's going across the whole state, and they got a board going in different areas, and they'll show you the meetings, and maybe you can attend one of the meetings and comment to them. But the public and everybody should get involved in that one. So, the other thing I have, a couple of items that I'm kind of concerned with stuff I'm hearing, rumors, stuff going on, and people brought to my attention. How true they are or not true, I don't know, but it's something we all should be aware of, questions. School boards, teachers, anybody in official businesses and stuff. But they're talking about changing wording and stuff. We have brochures, his and hers, theirs. Society is changing a lot. And so there's some things that I'm kind of appalled to see happening today. But we should be aware and voice our opinions on everybody's job. The other part is this critical race theory. They're saying it's not happening, but there's rumors saying there is happening. It's a big issue all across the country. And if you want to try and change history, want to try to teach our kids differently. Every parent, every grandparent, if you don't have any nieces and nephews, start paying attention to this right now, because this is affecting our children and their future. 1619 versus 1776, make yourself aware of that. Do yourself a favor. Because it's huge. And then lastly, I wanted to say that I'm going Saturday, I'm going to Atrium County, because people roll their eyes and think this election was not stolen. Well, I gotta tell you, I have friends, I personally watched. I would have been downtown Detroit on election day, except I had COVID. This stuff is real.
And go to Aiken County, get some more fact information Saturday. And I invite everybody, however you feel, get involved. Go to your township meetings, go to your county meetings. What's your opinion, what's happening? Don't sit back and keep saying, well, they got us again. This is not political. These are people my constituents asking, talking about what's going on today. We can't wait to get involved. We're at a critical stage in this country right now. If you're concerned with your kids, your grandkids, man, I recommend you get involved. Figure out what's going on real fast. That's all I have to have for this.
Okay. Watch your blood pressure.
I get that. I'm trying to.
No, I understand, and that's fine. I agree with a lot of things. But, right?
Had the opportunity to go out to Dryden Park, 2 months ago. I would encourage all of the commissioners, if you have not been out to our parks recently, you should really take a trip out there. We have a lot of work. And
We've got historical buildings falling down.
Let's say, if you have not been out to our parks lately, I strongly suggest that you take a ride out there and take a look, see what's going on. We're, we got a lot of work.
I agree with that. Right. Brandon.
One thing I already gave with having that be AAA last week, basically what we already talked about. I did have a quick question for Clinton and or Jackie. Did the federal government come out with any new rules, regulations, or guidance on the federal funds? I heard something about it, but I thought maybe that's just
Yes.
what was our, oh, there is something new?
Yeah, so the federal government did not, the US Treasury had stated the rules to the internal and final ruling. And so then the National Association of Counties then made a synopsis and executive summary of those rulings to clarify eligible and non-eligible expenses. I forwarded to all the commissioners, if you didn't get it, let me know, but I forwarded to all the commissioners last week the entire executive summary along with an email. I took the best of the best from that, and then I siphoned it down to the most important that are immediately important to us, and I forwarded it to everybody to give heads up and review. If you didn't get it, let me know, and I'll make sure you do have it. There's a lot of good information in it, and there's a lot of clarification about what is and what is not eligible for those expenses, and that's going to help direct the committee's priorities.
Okay, I thought there was something in addition to that, so nothing in addition past that?
No, the last update that I sent is the most current.
Okay, well, that clears that up. As far as today, I mean, I'm really happy that we are saving about $50,000, really what it comes down to here on waste, that's what you call it.
Yes.
That's great, and I think there are probably a couple of other areas we might be able to find to do that, and hopefully we find even more savings as we start cleaning up these contracts in the schools. So great job there, great initiative, I appreciate that. As far as today goes, I was debating, I was this close for voting no on the resolution today, simply because, I mean, personally, I don't like voting yes on resolutions that are nonsensical, and that's really what it is. The nonsense resolution, it doesn't make, it's almost oxymoronic in its wording. It's well beyond its purpose, so I just, today, I sat there, I was like, should I vote no? And I was like, no, because it's not really gonna make too much of a difference, but I think something needs to be done. So, and I know I probably complained about this last year too, but it's just so ridiculous. Forced to vote yes on a resolution that if it was anything else on any other issue, we would say this doesn't make any sense, it's got to be wordsmithed and fixed or get rid of. So,
Well, we're forced to have a public hearing, so
Yeah.
the resolution is almost.
The state dictates that.
yeah, I understand. It's just frustrating because, as I said, if it was any other issue, if it was written like that and presented like that, we would throw it out and laugh at the person who ran for us, just because it's that bad. The other thing I just wanted to kind of point out, which I think is part of what we talked about today, is the fact that unfortunately during COVID, one thing we do have to kind of accept is that the elder seniors and the children were probably irrevocably disadvantaged during the crisis. The reason I bring this up is in England, they're talking about expanding the school day by 2 extra hours to make up for that time lost. And they're talking about all these different programs there, and it's been discussed even here. The fact of the matter is that's not going to fix what happened. You know, we as a society, which not saying right, wrong, or anything else, we as a society said that education and some of those services are going to have to take a blow in order to protect the public safety. Not saying it's a wrong decision or the right decision, but that's a decision that we made. We can't try to pretend to make up for it now. The fact is, we got to move on and try our best in the future. Trying to go back and say, well, we can fix what was broken isn't going to happen. Can't do it. So I don't know. I just felt like that's something that needed to be said, especially with the senior stuff, as we see the senior numbers are down in a lot of cases, and it's going to happen. There were a lot of seniors that probably would have, if it wasn't for COVID, or when some of the rules probably would have done things differently. They probably would have had certain services. Who knows? But it didn't happen. And we can say all we want, we try to fix that, try to correct that now, but we can't. We have to move on from it and just accept that is what it is and try to be better from now on. So I just wanted to put it out to the rest of the board. That's something I've been thinking about. And I think it's an important philosophy to go forward with that. We can't try to fix the past were made.
Kyle, a couple things, we got personnel to follow.
Yeah, there's personnel right after this.
Yeah, we're gonna do that here.
About the American Recovery Program, these are interim final. Please notice the word interim final. There is a period listed in the documents when all the comments that people might want to make now have to be in by, and then after that, we may see a final. It'll be interesting to see to what extent the interim final gets changed, because that'll affect everybody in dramatic ways. That summary from that Quentin referred to and sent out cliff notes on, that summary is probably the best summary of the 151-page document that you're going to find anywhere. Obviously, at NACO, they've got a lot of resources and they've got a huge amount of skin in the game in terms of getting that right. And I think they boiled it down to about as good a version as you can. If anybody else wants to see that, have fun. It's still tough reading. 151 pages was awful. This is a little better. Parks, I thought I would mention parks, water slide area. I checked this morning. There's still no final clearance from the state to allow water parks to open. So even though
It's an outdoor activity.
well, the parks can be open, but the water park portion is specifically not open.
I hear a lot of people have problems throughout the state with getting lifeguards and stuff through those situations because of that.
Everybody's trying to work on it, but even with the 90-degree days that are coming up here real quick, those features are not open. It won't be open until
Ours will be.
the water park features will.
It's gonna be 90-something degrees all next week, Kyle. And you're gonna have a lot of requests from people.
I'm sure there are a lot of requests, but the state is prohibited.
The state prohibits a lot of things. First of all, you want to gripe about something, gripe about the Secretary of State not reopening the offices. I mean, 6 months, are you kidding me? Get an appointment? To get my handicap sticker updated? Are you serious? We got some real jerks running this state, I'm telling you. So, I don't pay much attention to them, not going to.
Really feel dirty.
But,
Oh, really feel.
well, that's what I really feel. I'm sorry about that.
We have some really outspoken members of our commission.
Well,
There's more.
but it's a shame that we have to feel that way. It's a shame that we have to do things that way, isn't it? It's a shame there's not more people complaining about all this all the time. There, I said it.
Getting bigger.
You know, well, I can't help myself sometimes. It's unbelievable. Linda?
No.
I follow that,
Yes, I'm complaining about it.
Well, no, I was gonna add something to the park, but I think I'll pass on that.
That was part of the Lapeer Memorial Day program.
Yeah.
Yes, and my grandson recognized me. And all you can see is my feet that I'm on my tippy toes. At the top of my head, you can't see my face. I don't know how he knew it was me. And my daughter-in-law just said, he knows his grandma.
Yeah, they had some nice turnouts for Memorial Day.
Yeah, it's always a nice service that day. I was torn to go there or drive me.
Or Lapeer, I mean, they had nice services
Yeah,
all over the county.
but I did take our banner for the Vietnam vet commemorative.
I see in Dryden, one member got pinned. Tim Schinkel got pinned during that ceremony. He also was given his Bronze Star for his unit. And also, one of them was promoted, got his promotion to sergeant, I think. So they was pretty active over in Dryden, what they were doing.
I didn't know that was happening. I wish that would have. Okay. That's
So it's to me now, should I continue my little rant?
Move to adjourn.
Sit here, there'll be a personnel meeting in what, 10 minutes, 10 minutes? It'll be held here in 10 minutes.
So our,
Well, I
water park gonna be open then?
well,
I
I hope so.
Yeah, I do too.